The natural hair movement lied to us about many things, but it also told the truth about other things. As I'm doing my hair, we'll be talking about a very particular special community today, which is the natural hair community. For many, they would say the natural hair movement is dead. They would say it is finished. There were many things that went wrong with the natural hair movement. I know, look at my hands, it's crazy. One of the big things that went wrong was a lot of what seeps into a lot of Black communities and Black movements is the superiority complexes that come out of our learned white supremacy. What does that bleed into, Maggie? What does white supremacy have to do with natural hair texturalism? Yep, that bled through heavily. So while this movement was created to uphold our 4C girls, as we call it, and you know, even that whole like categorization of hair types is really flawed. You know, we'll go with that for right now. It was meant to uphold the girlies in the communities and showcase how versatile our hair is and all the options that we had with our hair. But what actually happened was, at the forefront of our movement, it was only the girls with the loose hair, the girls that had minimal to do. And you know, as a girl, let me tell you, as a girl who grew up in Black spaces, yeah, but school-wise, I grew up in North Philadelphia. And in North Philadelphia, I grew up in a particular part that was predominantly white, but also heavily Latino. And so it was hard for me, like, sounds silly. It was hard for me that once the natural hair movement started, a lot of the girls that I went to school with started talking about how hard it was for them to have their curly hair, and just like talking about how, you know, cultural wise, they felt pressure to have to change their hair and how their community wasn't accepting of their hair types, whether they had tighter hair. And this was a lot of like the Afro-Latinas and the people who consider themselves Afro-Latinas. And it was very interesting to me because some of them I went to school with, and you know, I don't know if I have 4C hair per se, but let me tell you, I didn't have their hair type. And going to school, this is like elementary school, but also a bit of high school, my hair type was ridiculed. So it's interesting to see people who, let me say it like this. It's interesting as someone who joined the movement to be uplifted, to be among people who struggled with their hair not being acceptable and whatnot. See people who made me feel like my hair wasn't accepted be at the forefront of the movement. You get what I'm saying? It's interesting to see people who within my community were uplifted because their hair was looser and they had the curls and they looked mixed-ish, or they looked different, and my curl was never gonna give you that. And see them be the face of a movement that was started particularly for the naps, right? For the locks, for those who had a little tough time brushing through, had a little tough time laying the edges. So it's been really hard. It was a hard pill to swallow. I'm not gonna lie. I think for a lot of girls it was a hard pill to swallow. And I think the other thing that, and you know me, I have notes. The other thing, pin drop. The other thing that was particularly hard was the fact that like it wasn't an easy movement to be a part of, right? Like, you either big chopped in or you transitioned in to your natural hair movement, whatever. On top of that, you know, when you washed your hair, you had to do this extra long wash day where you had a kabillion steps, right? And there was all these things that you had to layer, and it really created this false narrative, and I'm gonna call it a false narrative, that Black natural hair in its natural state. I'm not talking about hair that's permed or even hair that's heat trained, because I'm gonna get to that too. That hair type takes a lot of work, which I think was not the point of the movement. The point of the movement was to teach us how to exist with our hair and create a space for our hair, but also how to manage our hair easily. A lot of that was definitely missed with the natural hair movement. I know a lot of people who came in, who the OGs of the natural hair movement, had extremely long hair. They had been natural for years, but also, you know, some of them were 4C girlies, but also they had been doing this for so long, and it was so hard because you would do the same thing and you wouldn't see the same results. And it was like, what are we doing here? Who is lying? You know, and it's like, we base it all on like just these categories of being 1A to 4C, and 4C being the cap, and like we didn't talk about porosity until a lot later. We didn't talk about volume or density. We didn't even talk about just like hair history. Was your hair recently colored? Was your hair frequently straightened? Is your hair heat trained? And so the outcome of that has been that a lot of people have left the natural hair community. A lot of people have permed their hair, and obviously it's their prerogative. I don't think that there is a way to live that, I don't think it's a way to live that you feel like you have to struggle with your hair. I don't think that that's something that you have to carry. Even more so, I don't think that's something Black women have to carry. We carry enough labor on our hair. I know, because I know that I've taken pictures. That's crazy. I've taken pictures with my hair for work or stuff like that, and I promise you I can't go 2 seconds without getting a comment on my hair. And so it's very much a political statement. And it's a political statement because being Black in America is a political statement. It's not necessarily a political statement because I'm trying to make one. And so the comment, they feel so inclined to tell you that your hair is so wild, or it's so strong, or that, wow, they didn't know that your hair could do that, and they just don't understand the concept of braids. And it's like, do you think that I'm gonna sit here and tell you the concept of braids? Or maybe you should look it up. It's just like any other concept, you know what I mean? So understanding how political hair is, I have no place to tell Black women what they should do with their hair. I will say though that the natural hair movement lied to us about many things, but it also told the truth about other things. Firstly, your hair doesn't take a long time. I think that we've become accustomed to believing that your hair is not done until you've done the LCO method, after you wash, after you've deep treated overnight, after you blow dried your hair or done whatever. And I just don't think it's true. I think that there are certain things that your hair needs, and it's just like any other hair. Your hair needs to not be over moisturized. Your hair needs to not be dry. In order for your hair to retain length, you have to protect your ends, and your ends are just more susceptible to breakage because as Black women, we manipulate our hair a lot, right? We always are trying to do new hairstyles and whatever, which is the reason why hair grows so long in sew-ins or stuff like that. I wanted to say braids, but I'd be giving breakage. And so I want people to understand that like your hair can be easy as 1, 2, 3. It can be a simple spritz, moisturize, and go. The issue is not just the political perception of Black hair from non-Black people. It's also the perception of Black hair from us. We often find our hair unacceptable to go out in public. We feel like we can't wash our hair, moisturize it, dry it a little bit because you don't want it to be wet too long, you know, bring fungus or whatever. Moisturize it, seal the moisture, and go. We don't find that to be acceptable. Whether that looks like a fro, whether it looks like curls that aren't as defined, we don't find that acceptable. That's the actual issue. That's what needs to be unlearned. Because once we get past that, we'll understand that our hair is not that much work. Because our hair wants to be left alone so it can grow. But with this constant need to forcefully manipulate it, get it to style and sit a way that it doesn't naturally sit all the time. Because I'm not saying black hair isn't versatile. Let me tell you, we will do things with our hair like it's magic. You know what I mean? But often our hair, like us, needs rest. And rest can be a part of the routine. You can put these things and let them be a part of your routine. Your hair doesn't need the 45 million steps. Your hair can easily be washed with a clarifying shampoo, conditioner, and then you get out, you put your leave-in, you dry it a little bit, get it dry, you know what I mean? Not too much wetness, I said. That's actually a concept I had to unlearn myself. That whole overnight deep conditioning thing, leave it out. It's not necessary. You know? You put your leave-in in, you put your moisturizer in, you put your oil in, and you move forward. It's very simple. How that looks like for you is very different than it looks like for other people. Would you have to fluff it up every morning? Yes, but guess what? That's what everyone has to do, you know? And I'm talking about the white girls too. I have girls that are non-black who are my friends, and I know that they actually have to do their hair in the morning. Their hair just doesn't look great in the morning. Sometimes it looks very scary in the morning. And I think we have this misconception, right? Because we're not in conversation with other women regarding hair, right? Because we're very sensitive about our hair and we're very protective about our hair, as we need to be, because our hair is always up on the chopping block, whether it be an argument, whether it be in who deems it appropriate or inappropriate, right? And because of that, because we don't have conversations with other people, we think that our hair is the only hair that can hop out of the bed and turn its swag on. Other girls have to endure too. They have to wake up, they have to brush their hair, whatever. So low maintenance, I think, for other communities is not as low maintenance as we think. And in our community, our hair doesn't have to be as high maintenance as we think. And that's something we have to unlearn, and it's a hard concept. But before we even get there, we have to learn to accept our hair as it rests on our head. And I know a lot of people won't deem it as classy. They'll feel like they're trying to dip it into their Macy grayness or their whatever. And, you know, I'm not trying to rock a fro. I'm not trying to, you know, whatever. There are hairstyles you could do. Like my go-to hairstyle right now has been medium braids. I know these braids in the back look mini, but that's the smallest they're gonna be. The rest of it's gonna be a little bit because I like to include the naps in the back. But artistic styles like braids to keep the hair moisturized. You go back and moisturize it at the end of the day, a couple times a week. That could be a protective style. It doesn't need the extensions. We don't need the extraness in our hair. And in this political climate, as we move forward, right, and come January, where people will feel more empowered to comment on our hair, it's time for us to start. And I know it's not gonna, we don't, you know, 2 months is not enough time to build up confidence against naysayers or what people will say. But I think it's time now that we get serious with understanding and loving our hair as it is, right? And letting our hair rest. And also resting with our hair. That's really important. There's no reason to have a 4-hour wash day. Hey, that's too low. That's too heavy a load to carry for me, right? So I want my natural hair girlies to know that, like, whether you are no longer natural and you know are heat trained naturals, which you know, that's you got that 100%, you got that, or you know you're a box braid girls, because there are ways to do these things and still keep your curls bouncing, still, you know, whatever. But the truth is, your hair doesn't have to be neat all the time. Also, your curls don't have to be crispy, crunchy, defined all the time, or bouncy defined all the time. You know, your hair can just be. And I think as we move into this new climate and as we are teaching ourselves love and teaching ourselves community, and we look past at a movement, I understand that it was started for the right reasons, right? We built this community, we loved our hair together, we learned so much about our hair together. I feel like we're learning so much more now than we even learned in the past. I think it's important for us to understand that if anything came out of the natural hair movement was that we need to understand how to let our hair be. But even more so, we need to fall in love with the hair that we have. Because I guarantee you there are people whose hair can't do what your hair can do. And it will never look like your hair. It can try, I can try, but it's very much unique to you. It's very much a fingerprint that only exists with you. And sometimes the important thing to do is to learn how to work with that and manage that rather than trying to make your hair form into all these things and these shapes that it doesn't usually go into. So in ending my journal, I want to say that like natural hair community, I love you. And I think that we have this stigma of like texturism, and we should have had the lock ladies in the front, we should have had the 4C ladies in the front, right? And we really failed, and that sucks. And I think that we owe our 4C girls, our lock girls, an apology for that, because there's a lot that they can teach us about their hair that we can learn from, especially in catering to their hair, because a lot of spaces don't cater to their hair. A lot of spaces don't cater to my hair. But I want to say to the natural hair community, I love you, and I always love you. I've learned so much from you, and I don't think that the movement has truly ended. I think that it has transformed, and we're learning new things. I think where we should go forward from now is that the natural hair community should be about minimizing steps. It should be about letting the hair be. It should be about falling in love with your hair after you've done the basic things. Moisturize, sealing in that moisturize, or hydrating, moisturizing, and then sealing in that moisture, and then moving forward with your day. Not with the hair, with your day. Right? Being used to the stairs, being used to whatever, and just saying, you know what, this is my hair and this is how I'm gonna rock it. But also the other side of that is like play around with your hair. Like it's never that serious. It is very serious, but it's also never that serious. And I think that I hate seeing these things where it's like, F the natural hair community, I'm done with that, I'm blah, 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 blah. When it was like, honestly, it was never that serious. You could have left so long ago and nobody put a gun to your head to tell you to participate in certain things. But moving forward, I think it should be a community built on loving your hair as it is and embracing that fully. So this is my letter to you. And if anybody out there is a part of the natural hair community, is thinking about leaving, is thinking about, perming their hair, which do, if that's what you feel, that's what your calling is, do it, okay? I'm not here to tell you to stop. But I am here to say that if you want to look at another option, the option could be, hey, how about I become a minimalist with my hair? How about I do the bare minimum it needs to grow? And the bare minimum can be very healthy. How about I take a step back from styling and let my hair sit in its natural styles? Let my hair be. Just water the garden and see what comes out of it. So if you find this, I hope that it finds you with love. And in that, I'm closing out my page. Love Magdalene.